We begin with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who will hold a vote this week on President Trump's proposal to fund the wall. And apparently that's the only way to end the shutdown, even though Democrats are united in opposition. On Saturday, the president offered a temporary 3-year protection for young, undocumented migrants under DACA, as well as immigrants from countries on the temporary protected status list. It is Trump's first public offer to Democrats since the shutdown began on December 22nd, now at 31 days and counting. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi called the proposal a non-starter and said that his offers of protection do not represent a good faith effort to restore certainty to people's lives. Trump's proposal came a day after reporting that the Supreme Court is unlikely to hear the administration's appeal to a lower court ruling that blocked him from shutting DACA down, meaning the program will stay in place for at least 10 more months. On Sunday, Trump tweeted multiple times about Pelosi, accusing her of behaving irrationally, calling her a radical Democrat, and telling her to clean up the streets in San Francisco, which Trump called disgusting. Last night on MSNBC, Assistant Democratic Leader James Clyburn said the White House proposal did not go far enough.
If a high school DACA person were to accept this deal in 3 years, what would happen if that person is away in school trying to get a college degree or some other post-secondary educational pursuit, and then look up 3 years expired, and they're back in the shape that they were in
What if
before.
what if the president made those DACA protections permanent? Would that change this equation?
Yes, it would. TPS as well.
Speaker Pelosi says Democrats will vote again this week to reopen the government, something Vice President Pence said they will reject.
You could open the government tomorrow. The House has passed bills to open the government tomorrow. Right. Why don't you sign them and open the government, and then you can negotiate about this?
Well, because, I mean, you know, frankly, Chris, what the American people want us to do is to work on their priorities, and the American people want us to secure the border.
Oh, my gosh. John Heilman, first of all, this shutdown has massive implications on the economy and on people's lives. Day 31, are we just, bottom line it, are we any closer to opening it up?
I don't think we're in any way appreciably closer to opening the government up, Mika, because I do think that the way this played out over the weekend suggested, first of all, the president's not really in the mood to negotiate. What the president put on the table on Saturday was not the product of any kind of negotiation. It was a White House offer, and one that Democrats rejected so rapidly and so unequivocally that it suggests both that they believe that they're in the right on the substance, but also that they think the politics are working in their favor. So it doesn't seem to me like this moved the ball forward. You could have imagined this proposal as part of a genuine negotiation being a starting point, but not as a kind of a unilateral offer thrown at Democrats, not part of a conversation. Again, this is nowhere close to where the ending point would have to be, but you could imagine sitting around a table with Democrats and Republicans in the White House and maybe having this as the starting point for the beginning of a negotiation over the course of several days. But I think, as I said, Democrats I was a little surprised by just how forcefully and quickly they rejected it pretty much out of hand.
Yeah, Nick Confessori, what's most likely the next move? I mean, moving forward, who plays? Who goes next?
Well, right now, the president has offered to solve 2 problems he created, and in return, he's asking for something that a majority of the country is against. It's not a great deal for Democrats. I think the actual reason why the Democrats have been so firm is not to embarrass the president, but the fact is, if they let him win now and use the shutdown to extract policy concessions he can't get a different way, he will do it over and over again. If you let an unpopular president pull through an unpopular policy with the government as hostage, it will be his only policy path for most of his agenda, and that would be a dark 2 years for the party and for everybody else.
Well, President Trump is facing blowback from a number of his supporters and immigration hardliners over his offer to end the government shutdown. Commentator Ann Coulter, who has continued to demand that Trump keep his signature campaign promise, tweeted on Saturday, "There are a million things to trade for a wall: a higher federal minimum wage, an infrastructure bill, a solar panel bill, a trade a wall for amnesty, and there's no purpose to having a wall." The president apparently heard the criticism, tweeting yesterday, "No amnesty is not a part of my offer. It is a 3-year extension of DACA. Amnesty will be used only on a much bigger deal, whether on immigration or something else. Likewise, there will be no big push to remove the 11 million plus people who are here illegally. But be careful, Nancy," referring to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Noah Rothman, so who's advising the president? Is it Ann Coulter on Twitter? Is that where we are?
I don't think so. I'm just by virtue of this offer, which has
pushing back a little here.
It's rebuffed his right flank. I actually think the president's move here is rather savvy, if only because it has exposed the farce of this whole thing. His supporters are now acknowledging that the wall really isn't on the table. I mean, if we're getting this deal and we're only getting steel slats along a portion of the border for $5 billion, which is well south of what they were initially asking for in the earlier stages of this administration, around $25 billion, then it's not a deal at all. Likewise, Democrats have now been forced to say, well, we would entertain something like a wall for a permanent DACA fix. So no longer is this an immorality that we can even countenance. It is part of a broader negotiation. The fact that this is all happening in public means we're still at the posturing stage, but that to me is some movement.
Yeah, and Heidi Przybyla, what are you looking at today in terms of how Democrats will be moving forward with this? And what, at this point, where do the State of the Union stand?
Mika, I reached out to some moderate Democrats in the Senate because clearly this was an attempt to move this issue over to the Senate. My reporting is that Mitch McConnell picked up the phone and called the president and said, look, Nancy Pelosi is not going to budge on this. You need to shake things up. That's why the proposal came, to kind of move this to the Senate, pressure some of those moderate Democrats. Well, it was in short order that we heard from some of those moderates, like Mark Warner, who, by the way, was one of the #1 targets. They told me because he represents a state with a lot of federal workers, Virginia, the delegation in Maryland as well. Well, they're all standing firm, Mika, because like Nick said, this really is not even about the details at this point of the negotiation. It is about the principle of having the negotiation at a time when, in the Democrats' words, you're holding 800,000 federal workers hostage, that Democrats will refuse to have this negotiation while the government is shut down, because this will happen again and again, and we're already seeing evidence of that in that groups, including pro-life groups, are already saying, why are we having a shutdown over the wall? We should have a shutdown over Planned Parenthood funding. And so that's why I think they're going to have to find some kind of a vehicle to meet halfway on this. This cannot be a full negotiation, Mika, to have this kind of a grand bargain while the government shut down and federal workers are suffering. In the past, the vehicle has always been, because we've had these time and again over other issues like Obamacare, and the vehicle's always been some kind of a temporary spending bill to try and use that time to work out a negotiation. At this point, we're not even there yet. And the specifics are very far apart, as we've reviewed before, in terms of the DACA deal and the Democrats' resistance to the wall. So when is that halfway measure going to materialize? Don't see it yet.
Reverend Al, talk to me, characterize, if you can, what you think of the president's DACA offer.
I think the DACA offer is not really an offer at all. Clearly, when the president says, I'm going to give 3 years here, when you look at the fact that in 3 years he will, if he survives the Mueller investigation, be running for re-election, and if re-elected, he could cancel that. I think that Congressman Clyburn is right. There's no real permanence or stability there. But the thing that I think that is most outrageous and that hits home to me on Martin Luther King Day is we're acting like 800,000 people are not sitting there wondering how they're going to buy gas and groceries while we're playing this posturing game. This is not about Trump versus
Nancy Pelosi. This is about 800,000 people that work for the federal government, some of them that secure us at airports, that now don't know where their next paycheck is coming from. And to be so heartless that we're playing this political chess game using workers as pawns is something that I think does not speak well of this president when he makes an offer that he knows is only putting back some of the things that he took away. That is not a negotiation, that's a negation. He did not even bring up those 800,000 workers in his statement the other night, Mika. To talk to this nation and ignore the federal workers who are not getting paid, not even giving them a sense of empathy or sensitivity, was an insult to the American people.
Well, he tweeted about them later, Reverend Al. Maybe somebody nudged him and said, you forgot to pretend you have empathy, calling them patriots, great patriots. So he got to it. Just. Yeah. Okay, we're going to get to the ramifications of the shutdown throughout the show this morning, the implications on the economy and also on the lives of the American people who are not getting paychecks.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.